Welcome to Short Movie Channel. Our movie today begins at a high school graduation ceremony. Each student takes the stage to receive their diploma and delivers a speech, thanking their family and everyone who supported them to reach this milestone. At this moment, it's Dennis's turn to receive his diploma and give his speech. Dennis stands in front of the microphone, visibly nervous because he's a shy and introverted young man. In that moment, he remembers his friend Rich's advice about his feelings for their classmate Beth, the most popular and admired girl in school. Dennis has secretly loved Beth for a long time but has never had the courage to tell her because she's well liked by everyone, while he feels invisible and unnoticed. Rich had encouraged Dennis to confess his feelings for Beth in a unique way, telling him that if he didn't, he might regret it since he might never see her again after high school. Snapping out of his thoughts, Dennis decides to take Rich's advice. He seizes the opportunity to confess his love for Beth in front of all the students, teachers, and even parents during his graduation speech. He starts by thanking his family for their support throughout his school journey, then surprises everyone by openly declaring his love for Beth, saying he's admired her for years and knows everything about her. Dennis's bold confession shocks everyone but also gives him newfound courage and confidence. He continues his speech in an unusual way, poking fun at some of his classmates. For instance, he mocks Kevin, Beth's boyfriend, calling his behavior childish for still dating high school girls despite being in military school. Before Dennis could go further and reveal more about his classmates, the teacher quickly steps in, thanks him for his speech, and cuts him off. Later, she confronts Dennis and asks why he behaved this way. Dennis apologizes and explains that he only wanted to get Beth's attention because he loves her, and was afraid he wouldn't have another chance to confess his feelings after graduation. Feeling sorry for him, the teacher decides to forgive him but warns him not to repeat such actions. Meanwhile, Beth approaches Dennis, telling him she felt embarrassed by what he did in front of everyone. Dennis apologizes, explaining that his only goal was to get her attention. To make it up to her, he invites her and her friends to a graduation party at his house. At the same time, Kevin notices the interaction and becomes furious. He confronts Dennis and punches him, angered by what Dennis had said about him. Since Kevin is much stronger than Dennis, he easily overpowers him, knocking him to the ground. Just as things escalate, the teacher intervenes again and pulls Kevin away, preventing the situation from getting worse. Despite everything that happened to Dennis, he was happy to have finally confessed his love for Beth. So, he heads back home with his friend Rich and starts preparing for the party, where the only guests invited are Beth and her friends. Dennis's family is delighted to see him excited about the party, as their son was always lonely and didn't have any friends. Because of this, they decide to leave the house for him and his friends for the day. Before leaving, Dennis's father advises him to get closer to Beth and make her fall in love with him as well. Dennis and Rich wait outside the house for Beth, worried she might not show up for the party. But then Beth arrives with her friends in her car. Dennis and Rich greet them warmly, and Dennis feels relieved when they enter the house and find it empty, realizing no one else was invited. Dennis opens a bottle of a drink for the first time in his life, injuring his hand due to his inexperience, and then falls off his chair because of the bottle's force, leaving him embarrassed in front of Beth. His plan to make her fall for him seems to be failing. At that moment, Beth's phone rings with Kevin's number. When she answers, he asks where she is. Annoyed by his jealousy and controlling behavior, Beth refuses to tell him and warns him against trying to track her down. Minutes later, they are all shocked when Kevin arrives at the house with his friends. Beth realizes he had been monitoring her phone to find her location. Dennis acts quickly, rushing to shut all the windows before Kevin can enter. However, Kevin reaches the back door before Dennis can lock it, barging in. Kevin starts attacking Dennis violently, while Rich escapes and hides in Dennis's room. With great difficulty, Dennis manages to escape from Kevin and runs to his room, searching for anything he can use to defend himself. Unfortunately, all he finds is a weak, glowing toy sword. When Kevin sees it, he laughs at Dennis and even breaks the arm of a skeleton decoration in Dennis's room, using it to beat him up. At that moment, Beth arrives and rescues Dennis from Kevin's brutality by hitting Kevin with the skeleton's head, knocking him unconscious. She tells Dennis to escape immediately. Dennis jumps out the window, landing in the yard, where he finds Rich, who had also jumped out earlier. But Rich decides to run again when he sees Kevin and his friends approaching. Beth tries to help Dennis but accidentally crashes her car due to her reckless driving. She quickly apologizes and takes Dennis with her. On the way, Dennis notices Beth's careless driving and feels terrified, but he pretends to be brave. He asks to use her phone to call his parents and apologize for the mess at the house, but they don't answer since the number is unfamiliar. Beth remembers Kevin might still be tracking her phone, so she throws it out the window to prevent him from finding her again. Later, Beth stops at a rest area and decides to buy drinks for everyone. Dennis goes with her, and while paying for the drinks, the cashier asks Beth about Dennis and the injuries on his face. The cashier assumes Dennis is her boyfriend, but Beth lies, saying he's her younger brother and that the injuries are from their abusive family. At that moment, Dennis realizes Beth feels embarrassed by his appearance and doesn't even want to admit he's a friend. Since they are underage, the cashier refuses to sell them alcoholic drinks. However, Beth flirts with the cashier, convincing him to sell her the drinks. Dennis witnesses the entire scene, feeling shocked and disappointed, as he had seen Beth in a completely different light. After Beth took them to the forest for camping, Dennis tried to open a bottle of drink with his teeth. Since it was his first time trying this method, he accidentally broke one of his teeth because of the bottle's strength. This embarrassed him in front of Beth for the second time. Meanwhile, Rich and Beth's friends left the campsite to walk in the forest, leaving Dennis and Beth alone. As they sat together, Beth confessed to Dennis that she had originally come to the party to mock him and laugh at him with her friends after the speech he gave at school. She also admitted that sometimes she felt like she wasn't a good person because of her reckless behavior. Although Dennis was upset by her confession, he tried to comfort her and told her she was the sweetest girl he had met in high school. At the same time, Rich and the girls were exploring the forest when they came across a cow farm. Just for fun, they decided to scare the cows, which caused the animals to panic and run toward them. They hurried back to the campsite, got into the car, and drove off as fast as they could. In their haste, Beth forgot to turn on the car's headlights, which caused her to crash into another car parked in the forest. When Beth turned on the headlights, Dennis was shocked to discover that the car they hit belonged to his father. He also saw his father stepping out of the vehicle to confront whoever hit him. At that moment, they quickly fled the scene before Dennis's father could see them and punish them. Later, Beth told them that their classmate Molly was hosting a party at her house and had invited them. She insisted they go to have fun after their day had been ruined. Initially, Dennis refused to go because Molly was one of the students he had criticized in his speech. But after Beth kept pushing him, he finally agreed. When they arrived at the party, Dennis was pulled aside by a guy named Kirk into another room. Dennis immediately panicked when he saw him because he had also talked about Kirk in his speech, describing him as a giant who bullies students. Dennis thought his end was near, but he was surprised when Kirk hugged him and started crying, admitting he had mental health issues. Kirk apologized to Dennis for bullying him and said he would be his best friend from now on. Dennis felt relieved that Kirk didn't hurt him. When Dennis returned to the party, two girls approached him, showing interest in him because of the courage he displayed in his speech. They asked him about the injuries on his face. At that moment, Rich stepped in and explained that it was because of a fight with Kevin, claiming that Kevin's injuries were worse than Dennis's. They later learned that Kevin was supposedly in the hospital, but they were shocked to see him at the party. This made them panic and try to run away quickly, but Molly, who was standing with Kevin, noticed them. Beth then saw Kevin and Molly together, realizing that Kevin had been cheating on her. Before Kevin could approach and hit Beth, a teacher from their school, who happened to be at the party, stepped in. At first, Dennis thought the teacher would protect him from Kevin, but he was shocked when the teacher announced that Dennis and Kevin had to fight and that he would act as the referee. The teacher explained the rules of the fight, saying the winner would be the one to knock the other out. Since Dennis knew he would lose against Kevin, he surrendered before the fight even began, apologizing to Kevin for everything he said about him. However, Kevin didn't care about the apology, and immediately punched Dennis hard in the face. At this point, Craig arrives, and as soon as he sees Dennis, he rushes over and punches Kevin to protect his friend. This leads to a fierce fight between the two, but in the end, Kevin wins and knocks Craig to the ground. Kevin then turns back to Dennis to hit him, but at the last moment, they're surprised as the house gets destroyed, and the car crashes, taking Dennis away quickly. They flee the scene, leaving the party. At that moment, Dennis is shocked by Beth's reckless behavior. He tells her that she's broken every rule, starting with her reckless driving, then destroying the house, and finally stealing Kevin's car and running away with it. He also warns her that all of this will cause her big problems, and there's even a chance the police might arrest her. However, Beth doesn't care about any of that because she's having too much fun. She even tells him that they're going to pull off one more crazy stunt before the day ends. Afterward, she takes them to the school, and Dennis is stunned to see that she has a copy of the school's keys. They all sneak into the school, and Beth, along with her friends, performs a dance routine they had learned there. Soon, Rich joins them. Despite all the chaos that happened during the day, Dennis finds himself enjoying their time together. This makes him decide to walk around the school with them. As soon as he steps into the locker room, Dennis is startled to find Kevin and his friends there, making him scream and run away from them. Meanwhile, Rich comes out holding a towel and uses it to hit Kevin and his friends. He then tells Dennis to take the girls and escape while he deals with them. Dennis follows his instructions. At this moment, Rich recalls all the bullying Kevin and his friends subjected him to when they were younger, including how they used towels to hit him, knowing he couldn't fight back. This memory fuels Rich's determination to strike back, and he uses all his strength to defeat them. He takes them all down on his own before quickly escaping the school to join Dennis and the others just in time. One of Dennis's friends suggests they continue their evening at her family's cabin in the woods, and everyone agrees. They head to the cabin and enjoy themselves there until sunrise. At that point, Dennis and Beth step outside to watch the sunrise together. Dennis asks her if she's upset after finding out about Kevin's betrayal, but Beth surprises him by saying she already knew he'd been cheating on her for a while. She explains that when they first started dating, Kevin was kind and attentive to her, but over time, he changed, and she discovered he was seeing many other girls. Despite knowing this, she couldn't leave him because she feared the gossip that would spread about her in school. Beth then opens up to Dennis, asking him about his dreams. Dennis shares that his dream has always been to become a famous doctor, and he's close to achieving it. He tells her he earned the grades to get into medical school and will be starting college soon. Beth admits she envies Dennis for having a clear goal and pursuing it, while she feels lost about her future after high school. She's unsure if she'll even continue her education. Dennis tries to comfort her, telling her she's one of the most energetic and passionate people he's ever met. At that moment, Beth realizes she's starting to like Dennis, and she confesses her feelings for him. Finally, the day comes to an end. Beth drives Dennis home, and they find Dennis's family waiting for him, worried about his absence. Dennis apologizes to his father for being late and for the house that got destroyed during his fight with Kevin. However, his father insists that Dennis must be punished for what happened. Before leaving, Dennis tells Beth that this was the best day of his life and that he doesn't regret giving his speech in front of the school because it brought them closer together and led to an adventure he could never have experienced without her. He confesses that he'll always love her and even promises to marry her after graduating from college. Beth is deeply moved by his words, smiles, and drives away. Rich then talks to Dennis about their wild adventure together. Meanwhile, Rich starts looking up Beth's profile on Facebook to message her, saying they need to have another adventure like this as soon as possible. And with that, the events of today's movie come to an end. I hope you enjoyed it with us. Don't forget to support us by liking the video and subscribing to the channel.